Hey everybody, welcome back to the Caves Cast podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Ryan.
and this week, like any other week when this series comes out, Immortal Thor,
Yeah.
number 11.
Al Ewing, man.
Yep, Al Ewing. Pro Probably one of the best writers in comics at the moment.
Yeah.
You know what?
That can't be. Yeah.
Before we even dive into this, like just because there's not a lot that goes on in this issue. It's just like people meeting and then talking and then finding Tyr.
Okay.
Um that DC story that he did, the one that Ewing did,
Oh yeah, the
DC
Pride issue.
Pride.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was fine. I wish it had been something more.
Who was it? Who was the main focus of that?
Blue Starman.
Okay.
I'd never heard. I mean, I've heard
That's
of
pretty
him.
obscure for Al Ewing to.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird because I've heard like on like multiple accounts that his like knowledge of DC like potentially rivals Mark Wade's,
Right.
and that's like a big thing to say.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, if it's true, that's awesome, and maybe we'll get more out of him soon. But it just, I don't know. It was fine.
I mean,
The art was really nice. I'll give it that. I think it was Stephen Byrne did the art. It was really nice art, so it
yeah.
was cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like a one-off little story about Blue Star Man.
That's
That's
cool. But hey, at least we get to see Al Ewing. Maybe it'll be more of a frequent thing now. Maybe
yeah,
that was just like a first assignment type of deal, and maybe
yeah.
we'll get more out of it now. Hopefully,
Because I feel like with the properties that he's done at Marvel, like that aren't the flagship characters, you know, like
yeah.
Hulk or Thor. Like a lot of his stuff has been pretty like some obscure, some not, you know, like
Right.
Defenders that pulled a lot of like deep cut references.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even
And
as Immortal Hulk, I mean that was deep cuts
yeah,
all around from like pretty
I
much.
mean, yeah, and Thor's the same way. It's just
Yeah.
like this issue, especially, man, with all of like all of the children of Odin meeting, like it's just
Yeah, pretty cool to see Angela being used and in
yeah.
here, you know.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good segue. Now we can talk about Thor. I don't know. I just, it was whatever. It was fine. I didn't have any complaints with it. I just wish it was just more than what it was. But I guess with it being anthology, you only have so many pages to work with, so
Right, right.
it's fine. Hopefully he'll do like a one shot special or something or other.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. All right, let's get into Thor because I I was wrong about the next issue. It is not Kokolo on art. He's not doing it. It's the same artist as this one.
Okay. I mean, I didn't really, to
Yeah,
be honest with you, that was my least favorite part about this issue was the art.
yeah. I mean, it was serviceable. And it's weird because like most of the time, like and you know me, like I'll complain about anything,
Yeah.
but like art is a big deal for me. So like I'm just so invested. I feel like I'm just so invested in the story that like I'm almost giving a pass on the decent art, you know?
Right.
Like because Kokolo set the bar and now that we don't have him, it's kind of like
Yeah.
I mean even like Ibram Roberson would have been a great like fill in until they found or even a permanent swap, you know?
Right.
Because like while all of the Kokolo pages for like the God War and like the primordial stuff was like crazy.
Yeah.
Like when we see the God War pages from Roberson in issue 8, they're just as good, I think. They're really
Right.
really nice. They're awesome.
Yeah,
So
this is a completely different shift into some this is very cartoony,
yeah,
very
and that's going to be the next artist too.
for the next issue. I was gonna say it's fine
Jan
for this issue.
Ballas. I don't even remember how to say her name.
Valentina Pinti, I think is her name.
Well, I mean, even after that issue, when they have the new artist coming on,
Yeah, because
it's not.
like This one I was like, this is fine because it's just conversations,
Yeah.
like no big action. So I was like, okay. But it's hinting that there's gonna be big action next issue, so I'm wondering
Right.
how it's gonna look.
So like and maybe there's not, and it's just like because in Simonson's run when Thor and T-Waz meet for the first time, they just wrestle.
Right.
Like they don't like go to blows, but that's the thing is like now the dynamic is different, you know? It's not just he's the young pup of his, he's not his just his young great grandson anymore. He's the all father. He's like he's challenging these higher level forces that he hadn't before.
Right.
So like is it gonna be like a simple, hey, let's have a wrestling match like the good old days, or is T-Waz gonna like bring the smoke this time, you know?
Right. Well, I was about to ask. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I was gonna ask, like, what is he even doing at the
Who,
end?
who
Uh,
T-Waz?
yeah, at the end of this issue.
Oh,
Like,
that's no, this is tier. So
yeah,
this is
what's tier even?
so okay. We should probably just get into this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
before we spoil the ending. Um, so like every other issue in this run, it's beginning with the quote from one of well, this one is an Ada. Like I know a couple of them in the past haven't been, but
Right.
this one says, "From that time, Tyr has had but one hand. He is not regarded as a peacemaker among men."
Right.
Says of Tyr, the younger Eddas of Snorre Sturluson.
And,
Um,
and one thing I will say, I know I mentioned it before, but I love the fact that Ewing is actually making it seem like he's reading the Avengers, how he's tying this into the Avengers book, and
I mean, he's one of the only people that do it,
yeah,
like who at least does it like religiously, like to
right,
the point where you're almost surprised if he doesn't reference something else happening.
right,
But like, I don't know. I feel like it was a lot like that in the 80s. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like and I'll just use Simonson's Thor as a like a reference point. Like there are so many times in that series, like where like in the later issues when like right after I think Thor's turns back from being a frog, he
okay,
find like he it's like the X Factor. So it's like Jean, Scott, Angel, like they're fighting against what the hell? Like Sabretooth's crew. Marauders, is that who they are?
yeah,
Yeah, like he's fighting against them, like, and then Thor joins, like gets in the mix, saves Angel, it's like protects the Morlocks. But like they're referencing a lot of other stuff that's happening in other books, like and even like in earlier stuff, like if you see a character that pops up that's not from that series,
right,
there's a pretty good chance you'll see like the reference box like with the
right,
issue.
yeah. I
So
mean, I'm really just loving it because before this, like, it really did feel like Thor. There's Thor in the Avengers doesn't really feel like
yeah, well, like,
Thor book.
and I think part of that problem too was you had Aaron, who was running Avengers at the time, who had just come off of his Thor run, who like, regardless of how you feel about it, it felt so disconnected from everything else at Marvel. Like it didn't even
Right.
feel like it mattered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and then you had Donny Cates Thor, which kind of the same thing. Like for the most part, it was pretty much just existing in its own space and telling its own story and didn't have a lot of, it didn't cross over with anything until, I mean, I don't even think it had an event tie-in at all. Up until at least had the crossover with Banner of War,
Right.
because there wasn't even there wasn't the King in Black tie-in, and that was going on when Cates had just started that run.
Okay. Hmm.
So it was pretty self-contained, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of references to if it wasn't something that Cates did himself, it wasn't getting referenced.
Right.
And Aaron, I feel like was kind of the same way. Like if it didn't exist in his Marvel universe, it probably didn't get referenced.
Right.
Um, yeah, unless it was something like he was building off an idea that had been used in the past, which his Thor run is a lot of that, but it was a lot of just taking these ideas that were here and pushing them forward here and just using those and not really like referencing what like a lot of what's going.
Right.
I mean, and there are exceptions. Like there's some stuff in the later part of God of Thunder, but like I mean, this is like a longer tangent than I had expected, but like it's nice to see that these books matter to each other. I think is
Right.
kind of what I'm trying to say.
Well, because even then, like if you reread Jason Aaron's Thor, that began around the time Hickman started doing Avengers too.
Yeah, it's 2011.
Yeah, so but you don't really get to see even in that they don't he doesn't mention what Hickman's doing and what,
Yeah,
the iconic Infinity moment where he, through like one of
right.
the builders or the
Yeah,
whatever, Like we
right.
don't get any
Or yeah, or even when they're fighting on, is it on Mars?
yeah,
In the very first like three issues when they're fighting what are they called?
like they're the gardeners or the builders or something like that.
The golden guy. He has the
Oh,
left. It has the night girl, whatever her name is. It's gonna kill me now.
something like Nilo or
Yes. Yeah, Nihilo, whatever his name is.
yeah,
Ex Nihilo. That
there it
guy.
is. There it is.
Yes. Yeah, when they're fighting him. Like there's no reference to that at all. And
Yeah.
what's
But
going on?
I'm just saying it's good to just see some consistency here. Like Ewing does realize his character is being played as a toy in another book, and I like that.
Right. Which I mean, and McKay's doing that too, you know.
Yeah,
So it's I don't know. I feel like Marvel's kind of entered this like new golden age in a sense,
yeah,
especially with these like core titles. Like I say that, but then they release stuff like Venomverse Reborn
right,
or Edge of Spider-Verse, I don't know, volume 47 after they just killed the Spider-Verse
exactly,
for the I don't know, third, fourth, fifth, I don't know how many times now.
right,
But like and those books don't really matter like at the end of the day, like to the grand like to the bigger Marvel story. So like it's nice to see Avengers and Doctor Strange and Thor and Hulk and Fantastic Four and like a lot of these like classic characters have like a research like their books have a resurgence in popularity and them actually be like well written and there's like a lot of connective tissue between them. It just I don't know, it makes the universe feel more alive.
exactly. And Ewing's one of the only people that goes out of his way to make sure that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean he loves continuity. So
Mm,
so after yeah, they just addressed really quick what happened to Thor in the last issue and how he probably shouldn't be on Earth alone for the time being until this is like kind of squashed.
right,
Uh, and Sam just tells like Captain America, Sam Wilson says like, "Hey man, just hang like if you're gonna be on Earth, just roll with us. It's probably just best that way."
right,
And for whatever reason, if you're watching this and it's your first episode, last issue of Immortal Thor, Thor has been framed for two murders. Well, I guess technically one because he did zap the shit out of the keep.
right,
But he also did it thinking he would turn back into the keep and have everybody realize it was a giant monster. So
right,
that's not the case. So he's being framed for a double murder. Um, and this issue is all about finding Tyr and gathering all of Odin's children because they all have a different like skill set that they bring. One's a hunter, one's like the strongest, one is the bravest, one is the trickster, one is the youngest, one is the fastest, one is the firstborn, one is the strongest. You know what I mean? Like they're all like they all have like a purpose. They all have something that like embodies them as a god. Um, so like when Thor meets with everybody, he Angela is there, and we last saw her in Kate's run. I don't maybe she was in Ewing's Guardians. I don't remember.
I
I didn't
don't.
I never finished it. I need to. But anyway, last time I saw her was in Kate's Thor and she was hanging out with Frigga. They were just
Okay,
doing their thing in the woods. I don't know, being goddesses or whatever.
right,
Uh and then you have who else? Lausa, who's the youngest.
right.
She is
We saw
the
her in the end of Kate's run with Groenbeck writing all
yes,
that.
yes. So Lausa's interesting. She's like I want her to grow up because I think there's a lot of interesting storytelling potential with her because she
Right.
is also like a daughter of Surtur as well. So the dynamic that can be used there would be really interesting. So I mean, we're probably far off, but maybe not. We already have a version of her from the Time Storm and Kate's run where she's an adult.
Yeah.
So if they chose to age her up, they could do so in a way that wasn't like it's already established.
Right.
Um, so you got Lausa and you've got Hermod, who's basically like the Asgardian Hermes or Mercury,
Right.
the quick god. And then you've got Loki. Everybody knows Loki, but he in this Loki takes on the aspect of the trickster, like the version that was became more popular recently because of like Agent of Asgard, and then
Right.
like the modern Loki, after he was reborn from Kid Loki.
Right.
You've got Balder the Brave. You've got Honir, the hunter, and Vidar, the giant. Um, if I'm not mistaken, Honir. Okay, so like Balder in JMS's run, I think. If it's not JMS, it's right after when Gillen takes over. Like at some point in that like era where it's like Siege and JMS and Gillen,
Yeah.
it's revealed that Balder is actually a biological son of Odin.
Okay.
So Balder already has brothers, and I'm Honir being one of them. So that puts him into the fold there. Like he is also a son of Odin.
Gotcha.
So, which is, I mean, I'm all for it, dude. Like, use these gods, use them. They've been around. Like, some of these characters haven't been used but a couple times, and the last time they were used was maybe like once in an annual or random issue in like 20, 30, 40 years ago, some of these guys.
Right.
So, I mean, if anybody's going to use them, Ewing's the guy to do it. Um, then you have Bragi, who enters the fold, and it's funny because it's just like a sibling dynamic. It's all of them having like just a conversation, and it's like, why are we here? They're all
Right.
like nagging each other. They're all like making fun of each other. They're like, it's just like a bunch of siblings getting together, and one of them is trying to get down to business, but the rest of them are just kind of like bickering. Uh, so they're like trying to get all the siblings together, continuing on with their conversation and why they're here, and then Bragi shows up. And Bragi's only been again hasn't shown up that much.
Right.
I, I he might be another character that hasn't shown up since like the like Siege era, like JMS era. So it's cool. I like it. I know I've seen like online some people are like, well, this is just like it's just like a nothing issue. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and it's just like whatever. And I'm just like, I mean, kind of. But if you were paying attention, like this is the only thing since issue one that hasn't really been addressed yet.
Yeah.
Like the Skinner box with Tyr climbing or like with Tyr getting into it.
Right.
So like you may as well do it now before we get on to whatever's next because the next issue, 12 is him fighting T-Waz, and then 13 and 14 are just going to be the next arc probably.
Right.
Like I mean 14 especially is him versus Zeus. So like if you don't address this now, like when
Right.
because it's just a plot thread that's hanging for too long. Um so yeah, I mean Bragi comes in. It's funny because immediately Loki's like, ugh, this guy.
Yeah.
And because I mean, because honestly, they're a lot alike. Like Bragi is the god of poetry and Loki is the god of stories.
Exactly.
And yeah, so they're both like masters with their words and like their words carry power. And then so they've been gathering and they've gathered a couple times, Thor and Loki have throughout the series, like when they're telling stories, like so when they're in issue 6 and 7, when when they're retelling the story of when they go to Utgard,
Yeah.
they're in this same place, Ullr's Hall, and it
Okay.
has like the telling fire and it's like a mystical fire. I'm it's either Ular is brand like an actual new character in the Marvel universe, or he's shown up before, but it's been a long time and I cannot
So
remember.
obscure, just like a random back corner.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up really fast, see if I can.
So it wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
Oh nope, yeah, his this is his first appearance.
oh wow, okay,
So yeah, okay. I mean, which is cool because we get him first mentioned in issue 6 when they start sitting around the fire talking about, this is Ullr's flame.
right,
Um, yeah, and I'll just like it's a cool design, man. It's really cool. So it says like so it's like just like a conversation between like Thor and Bragi. He's like, I'm glad you're with us, brother. It's been too long, and yet compared to some, not long at all. I'm not the only exile with desire to look once more upon the ancient fire. I share that with the God who built this hall. And then they're all like stunned. They're like, what? And then it says, what words can make the Aesir catch their breath? An invocation of a god forgot Thor's truest kin, but all that Thor was not. No hero, but a god of doom and death. You called for the children of Odin, Thor, and yet, though you hold your congress around my own fire and under my own roof, you called not for Uller. I have been gone from Asgard a long time. But have I been gone so long as that, brother? Am I so easy unremembered? Am I so greatly feared?
right,
Cool, man. Cool like introduction.
yeah,
Uh it's interesting. I mean, I'm a sucker, bro. I every bit of this is just like I'm eating it up.
yeah,
It's just so cool, man. Like I just want to know what he's about now. Like
yeah,
give me an issue dedicated to Uller. I like at this point, like if he were to just run Thor for the next 5 years and just whatever you got, dude, just let me have it.
yeah.
It doesn't matter at this point.
I think so.
If you want to give me a one shot that is a story about each one of these characters right here, I'll buy them all.
Yeah, or like just do an annual about Uller.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah,
take a page out of every other character's book and do a
yeah,
$10 book and give me 8 stories about
right.
each, one about each of them. I'd buy it. I'm just a sucker. Uh, other than that, now they're on their way. They're gonna go look for Tyr. He's the last sibling. Uh, so Ular sends them into the in between, and it's kind of, and I for the life of me I can't remember what they're called, but it's like those like rooms where it's like all of the weird like stairs
Yeah,
going
like
up
those
the sky.
paintings where it's like basically a paradox. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah. I also just want to like every like this is the second time I've made a connection between the like Ewing's work and Berserk.
Yeah,
Like I just keep maybe it's me just finding similarities, but like this is something that you see like when the Bale is activated, like the egg that the demons carry around
right.
sends them to this pocket dimension where they can like interact with the God hand and like make their deal and make their sacrifice. I don't know. I'm I'm looking for connections. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So yeah, they're in the in between. So it's like outside of time and space. Uh, and it's just Skinner boxes everywhere, is what it looks like.
right.
Um, and just like we were talking about last week when we talked about Doom, uh, they reference the eighth cosmos in this
Yeah,
and how it's changed, and it did directly references gods because it has the new designs from gods.
right.
So it's again, it's cool to see it being connected to even like stuff Hickman's doing.
Exactly.
And Ewing seems to be the only one doing it again.
Right.
Um, yeah, and then like it's discovered that there's the in-betweener has been reborn, all of these cosmic entities have been reborn. But what's new to the eighth cosmos is the powers that be and the order is it the order of
The
things?
natural order of things.
Yeah, the natural order of things and the powers that be. they are new to this cosmos.
Oh, okay.
So, and at least that's my understanding of it. Um, so like if I'm not mistaken, when the Marvel universe like initially kicked off, like when they started like doing connective universe stuff with like Avengers and the characters crossing over and it being like a shared universe of stories. If I'm not mistaken, that was the beginning of that was like when the seventh universe was. That's what the Marvel
Right.
universe was then. And then Secret Wars happened, and the death of the seventh universe happened, and then at the end of Secret Wars, when the multiverse is reborn, that's the eighth cosmos.
Right.
So we're currently in the eighth cosmos. But like I was saying last week, like there's been several references to the ninth cosmos. So are they building to something? Like who knows? It would be cool.
Right.
But it's just regardless, even if they aren't building anything, and it's just them being like throwing in like references for people like us that are like, oh hey, look, like they keep referencing this, they keep talking about this. Like if it's just for people like me or people like that are into that kind of stuff, then so be it. Like that's
Right.
cool enough. But like if it does lead to something, like it's cool to see at least a couple people like throwing the thread, like putting the thread down a little bit for people to pick up on.
Right. Well, that's kind of been sprinkled around in a bunch of different titles. So
Yeah. Like yeah, Venom is one of them. I don't know. It's just cool.
yeah.
Venom is the other title that like I keep making connections to Berserk to. So it's like it's all my favorite things are just like right there, man.
Right.
uh so yeah, also it's revealed here that Loki is the one that put him in the Skinner box. Like tricked him and like basically kicked him in there.
Right.
So like get out of here uh and just dropped him off in here. It says because this was trying to remember. Let me see. What's that? Right here. So this is like I wasn't expecting him to reference this, but it's an Ewing done issue or a couple like a storyline. Back in like Jane Foster Valkyrie, there was I think it's like three, maybe four issues. It's like the anti-all. There's
Okay.
like a piece of it that resides within Asgard, and Tyr like betrays them and is consumed by it. And so Loki's pissed about it. And he's like, yeah, what you wouldn't have right after betraying Asgard, he sells out to the Rokva, our own little piece of the anti-all. So I swept him and put him in a magic prison. No need to thank me.
Right.
And so like it's funny because when Thor says like when was this is like when this event happened, when Tyr had gotten a hold of this like evil entity, Thor was also got possessed by it. So he wasn't really aware of what was going on like during that time. But also like he also had no idea that this took place or when it could have happened, like when Loki like dropped him in, which thinking about it now makes a hell of a lot of sense why Loki was acting so weird in the first issue. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so it makes me wonder if this is like, man, because another thing too is that page with Tyr getting in the box is a Hickman written page. Like that's when those pages were coming out, they were written by Hickman.
Ah,
They were not written by the writers of those titles.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So it's cool to see them like playing like catch,
Right.
with some ideas. Because if if Tyr's been cooking in this box, who knows what's been going on to him? Who knows what's happened to him?
Right.
So
It's
I mean,
almost like Hickman was like, "Hey, Gods is ending," and he was like, "I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna take what I want from that and continue with it."
yeah, right. Or maybe even now, like maybe this is something where it's like some people are going to be able to build off of, and
Right.
he takes the best that comes of those ideas And if there is a second volume of Gods, we get like an expansion on some of those ideas too. Obviously, I would prefer it, and it probably is this way. But the characters that are like original characters of Gods need to stay there. You know what I mean? Like they don't
Yeah.
need to be written by anybody else.
Right.
Like because that was the problem with Krakoa
Right.
is there were
Exactly.
too many cooks in the kitchen and it turned into just a disaster.
Right.
So if God stays just Hickman and Skeety, we're good.
Right.
I don't give a shit about like the cosmic entities or some of the things that were set up in other titles, remaking like this, for example, it being followed up on in that own book. But if you're writing like Win or Mia or Dimitri or any of those characters, they need to be just written by Hickman. And
Yeah.
that's just like a personal thing for me. Like it just seems like silly for him to literally say, "This is one of the Bibles I wrote for the Marvel universe," and then say, "Hey, somebody else could write it." It just seems
Right.
silly because
Yeah.
that's what happened with Hawks Pox, and it looked and again like look what happened.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. It fell apart for me in the middle, and now the end is just pretty good. Not the best, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So just let the guy that knows what he's doing do whatever he's doing. Just let him do it. Uh, and now they're discussing about like how this is gonna go and like who's gonna get him out. What's interesting is what Uller says about it all though. Because like everybody's saying like we have to let him out, and then Loki's like trying to argue we can't because every single time we give him a chance, he blows it and he like makes the wrong choice. He betrays us. You know, he does the evil thing. He does the thing that screws us all over.
Right.
Um, and so Uller is the only one that takes note of this because Loki says like pull him out if you like, but don't blame me when he goes wrong again. And then Uller says, but he has gone wrong, wrong and wronger, dark and darker, and you are to blame. I care not what secrets you wish to keep, tellteller, but the boxes are not only boxes; they teach the ways of oblivion, and now they teach a god of war. That can only lead to bad news
Yeah. For sure.
because Tyr's not a pushover by any means. Like he's been Hela's general for a long time. He's like matched blow for blow against Thor in the past. Like he's not a pushover. And I mean, and he lost his hand too, and he still wasn't a pushover.
Right.
So like to give the literal Asgardian god of war a new way to wage war, especially like from Oblivion, that's no good, bro.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe this could set up Tyr as like a larger villain later on?
I think it has to.
That'll be sick. I'll
Yeah.
get down for that, dude. So they're all like discussing on who's gonna go in. So it's decided by the end of things that hold on, I think let's see. So Loki, Angela, and Balder go with Thor, and they go to because they're like trying to look around for him and like see where they can sense him. And they have two locations that they think he's at. So Loki, Angela, Balder, and Thor all go to the one that's furthest away from the group, and the rest of them stay.
Right.
And Hermod just zips right in because he's the fastest. He says it makes sense for me to go in like and go in first, and I can get out first. And so like he looks around, he's looking for Tyr. He realizes the box is bigger on the inside, and he sees Tyr sitting there praying with a brand new hand
Right.
with the title card of God of Doom.
Right. And he says, whose hand is that? And I'm
Yeah,
wondering that too. And what does it mean? And
right. And I mean, clearly it has some significance, probably given to him by the In-Betweener or by Oblivion.
right.
And if that's the case, what does that mean for Tyr? What is this hand? What does it do? What kind of powers does it have? You know, what is the symbolism behind it? Like there's a lot of questions.
Right.
But it's funny because like Tyr's never really been like a character that I've ever put a lot of like investment towards because he's like a lot of the other Asgardian characters. They're really like I love when they show up, but when they're not there, some of the times I just like I don't think about them or I don't miss them.
Right.
But like since that first page, like that first issue with the page where where he's in the Skinner box, every issue I've thought about it. Every single issue I've thought about like Tyr and what he's doing and like and here it is.
Right.
So like it's it's cool, man. I'm excited to see what where this goes. I'm excited to see how it's going to connect to other things. I mean, dude, there's even like we're already going to get into the other pantheons too. Like
Yeah.
the annual is coming soon for Thor, and that's gonna, if I'm not mistaken, that's gonna be Hercules tie-in, like a Hercules team up issue, and then for issue 14 references Nyx, which is like a goddess of like death or night. She was in Avengers No Surrender. Yeah, I read it like literally one time and that was it. I did
Okay.
it was cool. I'm pretty sure that's an Ewing done event. But yeah, Hercules was in that. He was one of the main characters in that. And he's gonna be Thor's gonna be fighting Zeus. So like, and that was one of the I remember when we first started this and we started it like with Immortal Thor #1. I'm pretty sure one of the things I said I wanted to see from this series was the other pantheons and how he connects to them. I mean, because he's related to all of them
Right.
by his mom. So like, it just seems like now's a good time to get into that. Like this would be the run to do it because this is the guy that could do it. So
Exactly.
I think this is kind of where we're headed, and I'm interested in that. And I mean, and we're still waiting on the Utgard stuff. There's a lot of meat on this, dude.
Yeah.
It's every bite is the best.
Yeah. I can't wait.
All right, guys. I think that's all we got time for.
Yes, sir.
Um, yeah. Tune in again next week. We'll be back with I don't know, probably Batman Dark Age. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That
All right,
book's also
guys.
really good. All right, peace out, guys.
Later on.